June 15th, 2022, I had twins, two boys, and by June 16th, 2022, I lost them. Now, the day that I had the boys, I was in pain and I called my husband. He said, call the doctor so we can go to the hospital. I rang the doctor and he said to come in so I can get checked. Now, my husband picked me up and we got to the hospital at 2 p.m. And when we got there, all the doctor asked was the intensity of the pain that I felt. I told him and he told this nurse to get me a bed. They put me in a ward and gave me some medication. About 2 hours later, I hadn't seen the doctor, so he hadn't checked on me, he hadn't examined me, had done nothing. So I asked the nurse where he was and she said he stepped out. I rang the doctor and he said he went to pick his kids up from school. He'll be back shortly. He also asked me if the pain had stopped, and I told him it hadn't completely stopped. It comes and then goes and comes for a short time and then stops again. So I think at that point he knew I was having contractions, but he didn't say anything to me. A couple of minutes later, the nurse came in and she checked on me, told me that I was having contractions. But I wasn't quite worried. I felt like if it was serious, then the doctor would have been there. Basically, I just trusted the doctor and felt like if anything was gonna happen, then he would have been there with me. So I just felt like it was probably false labor. But I sent a message to my mom and my mother-in-law just to tell them what was happening to me. And about 6 p.m. to 7 p.m., my family came in and I told my mom that I wanted some fried yams. So she said she was going to get some for me. Once she got to the door, my waters broke and I screamed. I was confused and I didn't know what to do. My mom was trying to call the doctor. My husband was also trying to get through to him. He even went to get him from wherever he was. And the doctor eventually came at past 8 at night. When he got there, he just said, I can't handle preterm babies. And I don't know any hospital that can. In fact, I don't think that there's any other hospital in town that can handle the babies. We have to go to Warri. Warri was about 2 to 3 hours away from where we were. And this was about 9 p.m. already. If you live in Nigeria, you know how unsafe it is to travel at night. So that was not an option for us because we were just thinking, what if we don't even get there in the first place? What if something happens to all of us on our way there? So I suggested this particular hospital that had all the facility and I knew they would be able to take care of the babies. And the doctor just kicked against it. He instantly said no. And I thought about it after I had my babies, and the only reason he said no was because he had a dispute with the owner of that hospital. He was not in good terms with the man, so he put my life at risk and my baby's lives at risk because he wasn't in good terms with the owner of the other hospital. And he said we were going to go to this government hospital where he also worked in. He was a consultant there. So we got there and I had an emergency C-section. He brought the babies out and showed them to me. And then he said his work was done. He left. So they took the babies away and took me to the ward for recovery. And whilst I was in recovery, all I could think of was that one of the boys passed. And I kept praying against it and hoping that wasn't the case. I just kept asking about them, and by morning I saw the doctor. I asked him as well, how are my boys doing? And he said they were fine. I said I wanted to see them. He said I wasn't in the state to see them yet. I wasn't fit for that. I need to recover first before I can go and see them. And I'm like, okay. But I noticed that everyone that I spoke to about the boys had this weird countenance. I mean, my husband or my family, every time I talked about them, they just acted in a weird way. But I didn't think about it. And about 2 days later, the doctor came to me and told me that my boys had passed. Now, all that I remember that night was he said that to me, gave me an injection, and I woke up at midnight. When I woke up, I just asked the people around me if the doctor was here, and they said yes. I just wanted to confirm because I felt it was a dream. And I called my husband and the doctor as well, so they can tell me it's not true. And it was true. My babies passed. And all I could do was scream. And I was in this world where there were babies and moms with their babies crying. And I had nothing. Now here's the thing. When he brought my babies out, he walked away and said he was done. There was no pediatrician. He didn't think he would hand them over to a pediatrician. My babies were left to some amateurs that didn't know what they were doing. Couldn't help them breathe. They couldn't do anything for them. Couldn't even put them in incubators. They basically left them to die. I mean, the least he could do was to ensure that there was a pediatrician on ground. And then prior to when I had them, a couple of days before then, I went to this doctor and told him my stomach was tight. I was feeling tight. I felt like it couldn't expand anymore. I felt like it had reached its limit. My skin was feeling like it couldn't move anymore, and this doctor told me it was normal. And this was on a Sunday. I went to him. I kept feeling like that by Monday, Tuesday, and I told my husband that I'm feeling like this, but the doctor said it's normal. And by Wednesday, I had my babies. Now I had a healthy pregnancy. I didn't have any issues. I had a very healthy pregnancy, and I did everything right. I did everything I was supposed to do. And then someone chose to take my babies away from me because of his incompetence, or should I say wickedness. He didn't even tell me that he couldn't handle preterm babies. 7 months of going for antenatal. 7 months of seeing this doctor. In fact, I started seeing him before I got pregnant. But he didn't think it was necessary to tell me he couldn't handle preterm babies, even if he knew that I would have them preterm. My supposed due date was in September, and he told me to prepare to have them by the end of June. So he knew. And I also knew that I could have them preterm because I had read about it. First time moms with twins, they hardly get to full term. So I knew. But what I didn't know was that he couldn't handle it. And I just kept trusting him and trusting that he was doing everything for my good. So, first of all, he didn't think to tell me that I couldn't handle preterm babies. And then he didn't think to check me when I went to him and told him my tummy was feeling tight. And then on the day that I was having contraction, he left me for 6 hours. He didn't even think to tell me at the point that he knew I was having contraction, that he couldn't handle preterm babies. I mean, if he had said it at that time, I would have left that hospital. So I basically stayed there thinking everything was fine. And he knew all along that it wasn't. But he let me stay there until nothing could have been done. Then he came to say, I can't handle preterm babies. At this time, and as if that wasn't enough, he left my babies with amateurs. He couldn't even hand them over to a pediatrician. Now, you're probably wondering why I had to wait for the doctor for that long. And if there was no other doctor in the hospital. There was no other doctor. He was the only one. He owned the hospital and he was the only doctor. So everybody had to see him. And the only reason that I was going there is because he's a church member and in fact a leader in church, and he's a gynecologist, and I've had good reviews about him. But I think most importantly, I wanted someone that I had easy access to, someone that I could call at any point in time, someone that I could reach out to every time I wanted to. That's the reason that I was going to that doctor. But it turned out to be that I made a mistake. And I went home without even one baby. Not even one. I didn't even get to hold my babies. I didn't get to take a proper look at them. Because apparently they had already buried them even before telling me about it. I carried them. I carried my babies, and everybody else could make a decision for me and not let me see them. I hope that someone learns from my story. I'm doing this for African moms, Nigerian moms, Please look out for yourself, look out for your babies. I know that the system is messy and there's so much medical negligence, so I'm just here to let you know that no one actually cares for you, so you have to look out for yourself. A doctor that I trusted is the reason why I went home with no baby. And I feel like he basically killed my babies with all his actions.